feel like this video needs a little bit of a trigger warning. I talk about pregnancy complications, birth complications, grief. It's just kind of sad. It's a lot of the things that I was going through when I disappeared from social media. Grab a tissue and let's cry together. I've wanted to make this video since I came back to YouTube. I just never knew how to start, where to start, or if I should even bother. I know I don't have to share like personal details of my life, especially sad ones and bad ones, but I feel less lonely when I hear other people share about experiences that I also experienced. And the fact that some of you have been here for so many years and stuck around even when I disappeared means a lot to me. And I don't feel like I owe an explanation, but I do want to share. So that's what I'm gonna do. One of the last things I posted on my YouTube was that we were trying to get pregnant and we were having no success. And then of course, right after posting that video, I found out I was pregnant, and that was awesome. We were so excited. My first 2 pregnancies with my older kids, I felt fantastic. Like I was barely nauseous, like tired, but not like it was very manageable. And so I guess I just expected that this would be the same, but it was not. My first pregnancy, I was induced, but then labor was a breeze. I didn't need an epidural or anything. Second, I went into labor naturally, and it was like, again, a breeze. I loved it. Like I couldn't wait to do it again. I had no complications. I was so lucky. I think that I enjoyed my last pregnancy for about a week. And it's really tough because when you say that you're not enjoying your pregnancy, people just assume that you're ungrateful for being pregnant. Like I should just suck it up and be grateful that I'm having a baby. And like, that's not fair. You can hate something and still be thankful for it. Like you can feel more than one thing at a time. The morning sickness rolled in and decided it was going to be morning sickness, afternoon sickness, and especially evening sickness. And like not just nausea, like puking and puking and puking. Oh my God. I remember just sitting on my bedroom floor with a bowl and throwing up and like honestly thinking like I can't do this. I'm not gonna get through 40 weeks of puking all day every day. It was really bad. I did end up getting medication that was supposed to help, but it didn't. And I know that this probably seems a little bit silly, but I was super bummed out that I couldn't make pregnancy content. I was really excited to take cute bump photos and tell everyone how it was going. I was too sick. I was literally too sick. I didn't have energy to do anything. Like for weeks, I moved from my bed to the couch outside. I just felt so bad, so bad. And people tell you like it's gonna be better, like when you hit the second trimester, you won't be so sick, but that just never happened. When I was about 12 weeks pregnant, maybe like 13 or 14, when you think that like you're past like the scary zone of pregnancy and you think you're kind of like in the clear, I texted Luke and I was like, I am feeling okay today. I'm gonna get dressed and I think that we should go for a walk. I hadn't been active at all. I was feeling really bad about it. Like I should be moving my body to stay healthy. So I put on a cute outfit. I put on a white skirt and a white shirt. I was feeling cute and we went on a pretty walk. We took some pictures and then we went to the beach and we sat on the beach with our feet in the water. It was probably the first day that I felt human in 12 weeks. My feet were already kind of swollen and sore, and having them in the water felt so good and I felt happy. Then it was time to go. I was probably hungry or something. And so I get up and we're walking back to the car and I look down at my white skirt. Oh, I'm getting a little teary. I didn't think I would at this part. I look down at my white skirt and there's blood on my skirt. And I'm like, of course there's blood on my skirt. In those situations, like, of course your brain goes to the most horrible thing that could be happening. I thought that I must have been feeling good because my pregnancy was over. Do not cry on the powder. So we get in the car and we head to the hospital, of course. and I am hysterical. We get to the hospital and we tell the triage nurses what's going on, and they were amazing. They got us in there so fast. They were so sweet and they were so sensitive, probably because I was hysterical. I had never bled in any of my other pregnancies. Like, all I knew was that bleeding was bad. Like, that was the end. I was sure of it. But they ran all the tests, they brought in an ultrasound machine, and everything looked fine. Baby was fine and moving around. Placenta looked fine. And there was really no reason that I would be bleeding. And so that was the first very scary thing that happened during that pregnancy. My plan for this pregnancy was to have a home birth, all natural. I didn't need anything with the first 2 births. I could have done it at home. Like, I didn't feel like I really needed to be in the hospital for the first 2 births. Midwives and home births in Canada, it's very, very safe. They pretty much bring the hospital to you. They are doctors. They work with the hospital. They work at the hospital. They can deliver your baby in the hospital if that's what you want. So we were working with the loveliest midwives, and even though I felt awful and pregnancy was sucking so bad, I was still so excited to have a home birth and have this experience with Luke. And I think I got my heart a little too set on having this home birth experience. Then at my next scan, they told me that my placenta was covering my cervix just a little bit. And so the midwives were like, we see this all the time. Like, it's gonna move out of the way, and you'll be able to still have a natural birth. I had friends that had that exact same situation, and it did move out of the way. And so I was pretty sure that was gonna happen for me. It's not super, super uncommon to have complete placenta previa, where your cervix is completely covered until the end of your pregnancy. It's like 1 in 200 pregnancies. And the fact that it was only covered a little bit and only had to move a little bit, I was positive that it wasn't going to be an issue. So I did my best to kind of just put that out of my head. Then I had to do the gestational diabetes test, where you drink this like insanely sugary drink and they test your blood sugar before and after. With my other 2 pregnancies, I passed that test with flying colors, and I thought obviously I was gonna pass it this time. Like, there was no indication that I would have gestational diabetes. I didn't have any of the symptoms, but I failed. When you fail the first test, I think the first test, I wanna say it's 2 hours that you have to wait before they take your blood. Maybe it's only 1. But when you fail that one, they make you come back and do a longer version of the same test. And I did post about it on Instagram in my stories, saying that I'd failed the first one and I was feeling really scared for the second one. And the general consensus seemed to be that a lot of people fail the first one and then don't fail the second one, and then you're in the clear. And so again, I was very hopeful. I thought it was a fluke, and that I would pass the second one and I would never have to think about it ever again. But I failed. I failed the second test. And so it was decided that I had gestational diabetes, which was like incredibly overwhelming. I was already struggling so much with being pregnant, and now I was gonna have to change my diet, write down every single thing that I was eating, prick my fingers and take blood every single time I ate, test my blood in the morning, test my blood in the night, maybe need to take insulin. It is a very overwhelming diagnosis. So I was referred to a diabetes clinic. They were gonna be really helpful. I thought they would educate me and put my mind at ease. That was not the experience we had with the people that were working in this diabetes clinic. I wanted to try to keep my blood sugar in check with nutrition. I didn't want to go straight to insulin, and I feel like that like deeply offended them. Like, that wasn't going to be possible, and I was absolutely definitely gonna have to take insulin. I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel respected. I couldn't get a hold of them when I needed to. They were late for calls. They were late for appointments. And I just kind of had to find the information by myself. We managed to figure it out on our own. I completely changed my diet. My blood sugar was never high. I'm waiting to put on mascara and eyeliner because I'm probably gonna cry again. I got one. I'm ready. Probably about halfway through my pregnancy, my grandma had a knee replacement surgery, which went okay, but after the surgery, after she went home, she got really, really sick and went back to the hospital. And it turned out that like her insides just stopped working. Like stuff just wasn't moving. Like it just wasn't working. And they were like, come say goodbye. And I was like, excuse me, what? And so I did. But then they were like, wait, no, like maybe she's gonna get better. I was like, okay, that's fantastic. And then they're like, no, she's gonna die. And then they're like, no, she might get better. And then they're like, no, she's gonna die. The hospital was probably a 45-minute drive from our house. For weeks, I was driving there, I was driving back, I was driving there, and I was driving back. And at the same time, the mountain across from our house was burning and we were on evacuation alert. I have got our suitcases packed with all of our most important, sentimental, valuable stuff. Doing these drives home from the hospital, not knowing if my grandma was gonna live, with like red skies and ash falling from the sky and these like apocalyptic views, was so intense. I am an ugly crier. I'm trying really hard to keep it together. Trying to come to terms with the fact that she would never meet my baby was horrible. It's been 2 years and I still cry about it every day. She was only 39 when I was born, so she was like the coolest grandma ever. And so she was only 71 when she died, and I really thought she would live a lot longer. Like I thought I had a whole lot more time. So I was throwing up all day, having gestational diabetes, worried that my house was gonna burn down, and my grandma was dying. There was just a lot going on. And so off to therapy I went. Well, actually no, I never really stopped going. We buried her ashes with my dad, which is what she wanted. And I really hope that they are reunited. The fires eventually stopped burning. After that, there was a little bit of peace. Still felt horrible and sad, but I was managing. But then my placenta went the wrong way. It completely covered my cervix. I had complete placenta previa, and there was literally no way that a baby could come out without having a C-section. I had never had surgery. The most surgical thing that I had done was had my wisdom teeth removed. With the gestational diabetes, I had already accepted that a home birth wasn't going to be the right thing to do. And so I was holding on pretty tightly to a natural birth in the hospital. No, not gonna happen. I was devastated when it became, you're having a C-section. I was so scared. And then to make it just a little bit scarier, when your placenta is covering your cervix, if you go into labor naturally, not only can it hurt your baby because it'll damage the placenta, your baby needs the placenta to live, you can bleed to death. And so it is just routine that they deliver your baby a month early. So instead of being born at the end of December when he was due, we were scheduled to have a C-section at the end of November, a month early. 4 weeks doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a preterm baby. There's a chance that baby's lungs won't be developed, they won't breathe. There's a chance that your milk won't come in and you won't be able to breastfeed. So I am spiraling. I was trying to keep it together because being stressed, being sad is not great for baby, but I was pretty much having a hard time the entire time. There was just always bad news. There was always something bad happening. I did like our midwives, but I feel like once things got really complicated and it became a surgical case, I feel like they didn't give me the same attention, if that makes sense, even though they were still my midwives. That honestly could have just been my own insecurity. It could have been completely in my head. I just felt like I was going through so much and there was so much unknown and there were so many questions that I had that nobody was available to answer. Then the day eventually came where it was time to have a C-section and it was super scary. And this is what I thought a C-section was. I thought you get like an epidural, you feel nothing, they cut you open and they take your baby out. Like easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. I watched videos of like how they perform the C-section. I thought I knew what I was getting into. Maybe this is a me thing. Maybe this is an experience unique to me, but I found it to be awful. The amount of pressure that I could feel, the amount of like pushing around on my chest that I could feel, it felt violent. And it also took so much longer than I thought it was going to take. Everything was just full of surprises all the time. At some point while I'm in the depths of having a C-section, I can't breathe. I feel like I can't breathe. I don't know if it's panic. I don't know if I'm dying. My blood pressure dropped like crazy. Luke is freaking out. He's like, is she okay? What is going on? And I guess it was because the numbing, the epidural had come up really high and I couldn't feel my lungs working. It's all a bit of a blur, but all I know is that I was sure I was dying. And then finally they're like, look, here's your baby. And I take a peek and I see a baby that they've pulled from my body, but I still feel like I'm dying. I can't even focus on the fact that there's my son. It's a boy. And then they put him to my left, but just a little bit too far back so that I couldn't see him. I don't know if he's okay. I don't know if I'm okay. And then they were gone. They went somewhere else. Luke went with baby and I'm still on the table. I can tell that like something's not right. Like something is happening that's not supposed to be. I'm alone. I'm so scared that they are taking out my entire uterus because I know that the placenta can become attached and they can't get it off and then you can bleed. I guess what was actually happening is that they couldn't get my uterus to contract. Like they give you medication to try and shrink your uterus back down. I guess to, I don't know, shove it back in there and sew you up. The word they used was boggy. They said my uterus was boggy. Nice. So I'm just still on the table. I don't know where Luke is. I don't know where my baby is. I don't know if my baby's okay. I haven't touched him. I have barely seen what he looks like. And then finally, when I am okay, everything's done, they take me to another room, not where Luke is, not where the baby is. And a nurse keeps coming by with an ice cube and she keeps putting it on my chest and asking me if I can feel it. And I'm like, no, I can't feel it. I can't feel it. Where's my baby? And then after a few times of coming back with the ice cube, she goes, when you can feel the ice cube, like we'll bring baby up. And I'm like, I can feel the ice cube. Could I actually feel the ice cube? No, not really. But finally Luke appears with Casper. It was really tough because I couldn't really hold him. My arms weren't really working. I was still pretty out of it, pretty loopy, but I was just so glad to know that he was okay. And at this time we were in a room with like a bunch of people and finally they put us in a room, just me and Luke and the baby. And I finally had arms again. My arms were working, my legs not so much, and I still had a catheter, which was the worst thing ever. They were testing my blood sugar, they were testing baby's blood sugar. We were both fine. Since he was born early and my milk wasn't coming in as quickly as it should have, I think when you have a natural birth, it like triggers your body to make milk, and I didn't have that. So we had to supplement him with formula, which is fine, but his weight was dropping a lot, which was really scary. And we did end up staying in the hospital for 4 or 5 days, which is also such a blur. Like I barely remember being in the hospital. One thing I do remember is that after the C-section, my entire body was so fiercely itchy. Like I think that was worse than the C-section. They gave me Benadryl at one point in my IV and it made me like, I don't even know how to explain it. I was twacked entirely. So I couldn't take Benadryl. I just had to be itchy. Another thing that I remember very well is they had the best coffee at the cafe in the hospital. It was like, I still crave it. It was so good. It was briefly really scary in the hospital because he was losing a lot of weight and we had to watch it really carefully, like weigh him before a feed, weigh him after a feed, like all day, all night. I was so tired. One last thing to throw into the mix. We had been renting the same house for about 5 years, and probably about 2 weeks before I was going in for the C-section, our dryer broke. So we called our landlord and we're like, hey, like we really need a dryer. Like we're having a baby. If someone could come and look at it and fix it, whatever, we need a new dryer. And so they came and looked at it. They tried to fix it. It was dead. Like it was really old. We needed a new dryer. So the landlord's like, can I come on this day and have the new dryer installed? And we were like, well, like we would like to be home on this day. We're going to be in the hospital having a C-section. And he was like, nope, that's the day we're doing it. That's the day we want to do it. And like, we weren't going to say no, we needed a dryer. We didn't want to like wait and wait and wait for a dryer. And we appreciated getting a new dryer. We are excellent tenants, never late on rent. Take care of the property. We go above and beyond taking care of the property. These landlords did nothing except be like kind of awful once in a while. They know very well that we are at the hospital. I had a C-section. They call Luke and they say, you're evicted. And so we're like, excuse me, what? To which they say that the dryer broke because we had used it improperly. First of all, no, we were not. What does that even mean? And when we said, what does that even mean? They didn't have an answer. And it's the middle of winter. And they told us we had 30 days. And they didn't serve us with a proper eviction. So we had to be like, no, that's not how this works. And that's not how this is going to happen. So we had to find a new house with a newborn right after I had a C-section. And it turns out they just wanted to sell the house, which is also an illegal reason to evict someone. And I think they knew that with a newborn in tow that we probably wouldn't pursue any kind of like legal action. I actually don't even think that they knew what they were doing was highly, highly unethical and illegal. They were just awful. Luke's mom had planned to come and meet her grandson and have a vacation, which turned into her coming to help us pack our entire house and move. It was so bad. And of course, I did too much. I wasn't healing well. It was a lot. It was bad. And we were so lucky to find the house that we did because there is not anything to choose from. And then our landlord tried to make us pay to update the house to sell it. Like they wanted us to pay $6,000 to paint all the walls. And obviously we won that battle. Anyways, so that's what I was doing while I wasn't on YouTube. And life is still hard, but we got through some like really, really hard stuff. And Casper will be 2 next month and he is very cute. If you got this far into the video, I really appreciate you sticking around and I will see you in the next one that won't be so heavy.